Now, some of you might remember that I've already attempted this challenge a while back. If you haven't, you didn't miss much, as I wasted about 50 minutes of people's time and a bit more of mine, just to end up not winning. Well, today's challenge entails me taking this wonderful green MX-5, just like I did back in the day, and beat the GT World Championship. To be eligible to compete in said championship, I must beat all of the national level events and the continental level events. In addition, I'll have to beat the Sunday and Clubman Cups alongside the respective drivetrain challenges for each car. So for the MX-5, it's going to be the FR challenge. The MX-5 is quite expensive for what it is, but this one in particular left me with some spare cash for a few minute upgrades before going into the races. The Sunday Cup was a breeze, especially race number 1 at Tahiti, since the opposition is just K cars and eco boxes like the Yaris. Race number 2 was a tad more difficult, and I'd say the most difficult out of the 3, despite me having to weave at the end of race 3 to stay ahead of the S15 Silvia. With that done, I went back to the tuning shop and splurged on some upgrades. I held off from buying tires as I wasn't able to afford super softs just yet, and the stock tires were holding up fine. The first 2 races of the Clubman Cup weren't difficult, but I'm glad I got some upgrades, as the third one around the Rome circuit is quite the challenge, with me squaring off against R32 GTRs, XK8s, TVRs, the lot. Thankfully, I didn't struggle too much and managed to clean up regardless. With the winnings, I snagged a set of super softs and returned to the special events once more, now for the FR challenge. Again, similar story across all 3 races, so I won't dawdle too long. Same can be said about the nationals, nothing much of note. The MX-5 cleaned up quite nicely. Of course, she is a bit pimped out by the time I got to the nationals, so that's to be expected. With the prize money compounding, I returned to the tuning shop again in preparation for the continental events, where the opposition really ramps up. The highly tuned sports cars of the time started to really give me a run for my money, but didn't pose much of a challenge in the end. So let's move on to the reason you've probably clicked on the video for. The GT World Championship. Now, the GT World Championship can be incredibly easy or nigh impossible if you're doing a stupid challenge like this. Under normal circumstances, you'd want to bring a regular race car, which you should have gotten plenty of from the continental events. And if you don't fancy any of those, you can sell them for a pretty penny and buy pretty much any car of your choosing. But these aren't normal circumstances. Our setup is incredibly important for these challenges, so I started with that. After making some adjustments to my suspension, brakes, transmission, aero, and differential, I was ready to take over the world.
3, 2, 1, go!
Pretty alright start, but because I have no power, I'm left for dead for the first half of the lap, until I pass the 5th place lister at the start of the back stretch. Not much of note happened until lap number 2, where I ended up going off track, but kept the car straight. Being roughed up by the 4th place Saline, I keep pace throughout the lap, eventually nabbing 2 quick overtakes on the now 4th place XJ220 and the recently promoted Saline, but due to me being overzealous, I failed to keep it steady while fighting the 2nd place Audi and dropped down to 4th. Up until the latter half of lap 4, where I managed to get a massive dive bomb on the inside. Now, the only car standing in between me and 8 points is the Orca Viper. After some questionable driving techniques, I managed to make it stick and finish first. I won't dawdle about me starting, as I'm obviously left eating the sand of this dried up lake, managing to get past the lister at a similar point to race number 1. But something unexpected happened. The Viper spun going down the corkscrew, and so did the lister. With a massive grin on my face, I capitalized on the momentum going down the corkscrew and passed the Jag for third, steadily closing in on the Saline in second. It wasn't until the end of lap 3 when I managed to get by Saline for second, failing to realize that it was the only thing keeping the first place Audi in check. Meanwhile, the Viper had already recovered and is hounding the two of us, making it a three-way battle for second. With me being occupied by the two howlers from the rear, even allowing them to slip by at one point, the Audi rocketed in front to victory, claiming 8 points and moving up to second in the standings. It isn't great that I ended up not winning the last race, but it's great that my main rival is down on points. But to have a fighting chance later on, I must get the 8 points on offer here. Same story repeats of the last two races, where I am left behind and the AI rocket off into the distance. I managed to catch up the Dud Lister at around the midpoint of lap 1, zero in on the rest of the field before a big braking zone where they immediately zoom off. Same old, but because there is a chicane right at the end of the lap, for which the AI slow down immensely, but you as the player can cut without losing much speed, allowed me to get up to third before the end of lap 1, catching up to the second place Viper at the S's, and performing the same chicanery as lap 1, I get into first place. Now, you'd think I'd just leave it at that and rocket off into the distance, like anyone with a functioning brain. But no. I decided to slow down as the Viper had caught up to the Saline and passed it. Now, I knew from experience that the Viper is very quick and would be trouble later on if it were to get those 6 points. So I proceeded to sabotage the living hell out of it, even dropping down to as low as 4th. But eventually my efforts paid off and the Viper finished third with the Saline in second and me first, claiming the maximum 8 points.
3, 2, 1, go!
Oh, Rome, how do I love this circuit. The long straights, 3 heavy braking zones which lead into mid-speed sections that progressively open up, just chef's kiss. The problem is that the AI do love Rome as much as I do. So getting anything better than 5th here is a real challenge if you're doing something stupid like me. Now, the story is again the same, with me getting up to 5th at around the halfway point of lap 1, and I was ready to resign myself to that after seeing the gap between me and the others starting lap 2, but the speed I managed to carry into the first heavy braking zone at the Coliseum, I passed the Viper for 4th, which I cemented going into the next heavy braking zone right before Sector 2. Next on my hit list was the Saline, which I dispatched going past the Coliseum for the second time this lap, carrying some incredible pace into lap 3, at the end of which I tried to pull a move on the second place XJ220, only to have been slightly too ambitious and letting the Saline and Viper slip past. And after a lap-long tussle, I was back in third with the Viper now in second, which is a mistake I correct going around the Coliseum for the penultimate time, and even managed to get up to first place. But as it turns out, it is rather difficult to keep 3 faster cars at bay, and I ended up dropping down to third right at the line. Because I was so focused on sabotaging the Viper, the Audi was sneakily acquiring points, and now, with 2 wins under its belt, is sitting in second place with 21 points to my 26. Heading into midfield, the hardest circuit on the calendar, all I could do is hope it doesn't come first, as the best I could realistically hope for is 5th place. On the surface, you wouldn't think that midfield is such a difficult circuit, as it's just an elongated figure 8. And it's precisely that it is an elongated figure 8 is where the problem lies. Midfield is a very power-centric circuit where top speed and acceleration are king. My measly MX-5 with its 300 horsepower is certainly, as the kids say, cooked. But something truly unexpected happened as I began to climb the ranks up to 3rd, with the Saline and Viper suddenly slowing down in the latter half of the circuit on laps 1 and 2 respectively, which led to a massive grind fest between me shoving the Viper into the wall whenever it tried to get past, and letting the Saline give me a tow down the straight, only to immediately sneak past on the inside for the rest of the race, which I somehow not screw up and managed to do, finishing 3rd for 4 points and winning the championship by a single point. That was one hell of a ride. I certainly think I've done the MX-5 justice with this one, certainly an S-tier starter car, even if I had to take some creative liberties when it came to sportsmanship, but that's besides the point. Thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far, feel free to drop a like and a comment on what you'd like to see next. Until next time, bye!